Now, the Sisters of Mercy are an international community of Roman Catholic women. Would you elaborate on what that means?
Well, we're a group of women who are inspired by the gospel, the stories of Jesus, certainly by our foundress, Catherine Macaulay, who was a woman who looked around the community of Dublin, Ireland in her time, which was around the 1830s. And she saw many of the same problems in society that we see today. Poverty, lack of education, violence, need for visitation of the sick. And she decided to found a group of women. At that time, there was no intention of hers to form a religious community, but ultimately that's how we became Religious Sisters of Mercy, was from that root. And so it's her spirit that is very alive in each Sister of Mercy today. And out of that inspiration came our vision to be of service to people who are poor, sick, and uneducated. She came
from a rather affluent family in Ireland, right, and used the family resources to found the order?
She did. She came from a family of modest means when she was young, but she saw that her father reached out to poor people in the city and brought them to the house for Bible study, but also for food and clothing. And so those early memories have been part of her reaching out to sisters. So later on, she stayed with a Quaker family and cared for the woman. And when the Quaker couple died, they left her what would be today probably about $1 million. And she used that money to build the House of Mercy in Dublin, Ireland. And it exists today. It's an international center which still reaches out to the poor, which still is a site for Sisters of Mercy and others interested in the charism to visit.
How did the Sisters of Mercy move from Ireland to become a worldwide international organization?
Well, in Ireland, when she founded the first sisters, different bishops asked for Sisters of Mercy to come to their cities or towns, and so there were 13 original foundations. And then it happened that bishops in England asked, and the same in the United States. Bishops asked Sisters of Mercy to come to the U.S. when we were building the frontier and moving westward. And we started in the east, but the Sisters of Mercy also went westward. And in the case of Albany, the community that I belong to, which is part of the Northeast, a bishop asked for us to come to Greenbush, which is now Rensselaer. So right. I think that's how it all began to spread.
Now, the Sisters of Mercy, they lead a life of prayer, service, chastity, obedience, and service, responding to the needs of people facing poverty, illness, and a lack of education, according to your book. Tell us about the life of prayer.
Well, Catherine Macaulay left us the legacy of action and contemplation. So from our earliest days, prayer, contemplation, and action have been formed in us through our initial formation and through the life that we lead. So we have always prayed together since the early days, and that kind of prayer may have changed over the years as things have changed, but we still value contemplative prayer and community prayer. And many of our sisters who are now retired and unable to work, those who are frail and elderly, their whole life is a life of a ministry of prayer.
And you obviously believe in the power of prayer.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about the service of the Sisters of Mercy.
Well, we have a fourth vow, as you alluded to, service to the poor, sick, and uneducated. That is an unusual vow for a group of religious women. Most religious women women religious take a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, but we have a special vow of service, and so that informs our lives, and it gets lived out in a variety of ways. Service certainly in healthcare, which has been my experience, service in education, elementary, secondary, and college, university education, service in social justice. We're concerned about violence and poverty and the role of women, the inequality of women. Those are some of the areas. We certainly work in parishes as pastoral ministers. I'm trying to think of.
What about obedience? Explain what that means when it comes to being a Sister of Mercy.
Well, first it has to do with listening to God in relation to whatever the issue is. I think the important word there, obedience, is to listen. So we listen first to God about whatever it is we're trying to make a decision about, and certainly to our sisters, our community, listening to what the impact of a certain decision would have on the community, and speaking to our friends. So it's a dual process of listening within, but also listening to the impact that a decision would have, and that's the way we come to a decision. We certainly have leaders in our community. I think lots of folks in the past thought maybe obedience meant you do what the superior says, but it is more a process of listening to the Spirit and trying to discern what is it that the Holy Spirit is asking of me at this moment.
Now, the Sisters of Mercy, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're theologians, teachers, professors, administrators, chaplains, supervisors, so many different vocations. I had the honor of going to St. Patrick's Grammar School, and the Sisters of Mercy taught me, and they were just a great order, and they had a special way of communicating with students. I always felt it was great.
Well, I think our sisters, many of our sisters were born teachers. I don't mean exactly born, I mean, we're well-educated women, but I think the sisters who taught and who teach feel that as a calling, and so that call always includes being in relationship. So whether it's being in relationship to the children in school or to patients that we care for, but that sense of relationship, trusting in God as part of the service. I think our sense of humor, Sisters of Mercy have a sense of humor. I think it kind of comes from our Irish roots. Those are the kinds of qualities, I think, that you find in a Sister of Mercy. Now,
becoming a Sister of Mercy, obviously, we just mentioned the different vocations within the order. Besides being a Sister of Mercy, you can be a doctor. How would that work? Like, were there Sister of Mercy doctors that you worked with at St. Peter's?
There were none at St. Peter's, but I know of two doctors in particular that are, one is a family practice doctor in Philadelphia, and she went through the novitiate and in the early formation training, and then went on to medical school. Well, I think one of the things that characterizes Sisters of Mercy is we're very well educated. And so this sister now works in a clinic for very poor people in the city of Philadelphia. It's a federally qualified health clinic. The other physician that I know also is a pediatrician, and she works at Johns Hopkins. So I think that, you referenced obedience, and I think the sense of call that is within a person is listened to by the community, and certainly if the person wants to respond to a need of our time, and certainly medical care, physician is a need, and so we respond to that need. In my own situation, while I was a nurse, I received a diploma from St. Peter's, but I also was educated by the community to get a bachelor's degree and a master's degree so that I could teach nursing. So I think all of us, the lawyers, the doctors, the pastoral associates, all of us are educated in our field.
Now, I was going to ask you, it's funny you brought up the attorneys. How is it being and I know you were not, but a Sister of Mercy, being a Sister of Mercy, but at the same time being an attorney? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, it goes back to our vow of service to the poor, sick, and uneducated. So all of our professional careers are rooted in that vow of service. So I'm familiar with an attorney who works specifically with immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
An attorney who works with poor people. Those are the two that come to mind, but I think what we do is take our career and provide the lens of service to look at how that career is then lived out.
We all know what a theologian is,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have Sister of Mercy theologians. How do they function within the structure of the Roman Catholic Church?
Well, probably one of our most known theologians is Margaret Farley, who's been at Yale University. She's a professor emeritus
Okay.
there, and she has taught ethics for years and years, and continues to write and teach to inform consciences of people who are interested in a particular issue. I think our theologians teach in colleges for the most part, or universities, and each of them has their own special interest and both writes, publishes, and teaches theology.
One of, I think, the most prominent Sisters of Mercy in the United States of America is somebody that I went to school with, Sister Marianne Walsh, who handles communications or public relations for the Bishops' Conference down in Washington, D.C., and is an author of several books, writes newspaper articles and blogs on the web.
She does. Yeah, she has been in Washington, and she's been in the media business most of her career also. So she just got back from Rome. She was there at the all the celebrations for Pope Francis, and you're right, she does a lot of writing. She's published a couple books on previous popes, and is the spokesperson for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops in the media. So we're very proud of her, and she's got a great sense of humor and works very hard.
Well, during the transition from Pope Benedict to Pope Francis, she was very active on the web, keeping us all informed as to what was going on.
Yes.
Now, the Sisters of Mercy work in the field of social justice. How effective have they been so far, and what is their goal?
Well, we have several goals. A couple of years ago, at one of our annual chapters, which are every 5 years, we identified some critical concerns. We looked at what was going on in our world and society and decided that we would particularly try to better understand and act related to a concern about immigration. So right now we're very active in letter writing and telephone calls and demonstrations currently because of the Judiciary Committee work on immigration, trying to our goal is to allow reuniting of families and a path to citizenship. So that's one of our concerns, and we get alerts. We have an Institute Justice Office that monitors what's going on about immigration and other things, and sisters get alerts and we respond. I just made several telephone calls a couple of weeks ago to members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to try to advocate for bills that are going to be supportive of a path to citizenship.